A very exciting thing has happened this week. Over the last, I don't know how long, you and I have discussed the nature of what we really are. And we've come to a conclusion that on the face of looking at each of us, basically as what we call human beings, we're creations of two people, our mother and our father. And at a time of sexual intercourse, how many years ago it was, a seed found its way to the egg, and then as a result of that, this physical thing began to form, but introduced into this little physical thing were all of these chromosomes and genetics, and then at the time that you became a human being, as we manifest ourselves, you had the appearance of your family. You were created by your mother and father. If your mother and father chose at the last minute to find somebody else, you would never have been here. There's no other two people in the universe who could have come together with the exact chromosomes, genetics, and so forth that made you. That was the physical part of you. But that other part of you, as you began to take form inside of your mother's womb, this little fetus, it needed something. It needed something to animate it. It was going to be suddenly no longer dependent upon the mother for its electricity and its nourishment. It had to function by itself. This little heart had to beat no longer on the mother's electrical energy, but it had to beat on its own energy, so it needed something to come into it. And coming down through the universe was an angle of light, which you in religion call an angel of light. And this little light found its way through your mother's pineal gland and then wound its way down into the fetus, entered into the fetus pineal gland, and you had arrived. Remember, when your mother and father had come together and the little body started to be formed, you were nowhere in sight. You came down as an angle of light and entered in. Now, at the time of death, the little angle of light that you are collapses from a wave to a particle and makes its way out of the pineal gland. We've gone over this, and I've told you about angles of light that have come and visited the Earth and so forth. But always in the back of my mind, knowing that light travels through space at 186,400 miles per second, you know, it always felt, gosh, you know, if an angle of light came down to give us a message, all he could do was say, hey, in 2 seconds you've gone past the moon and the sun. Well, something happened this week that clarifies all of this. And what it does is, once again, points out that what we really don't know is significant, not what we do know. There is a Danish physicist, Dr. Lena Vestergaard, a young lady in, I was going to say Daneland, what do they call that, Norway? And she slowed down light. And light, which travels at 186,400 miles a second, by introducing it to a select group of atoms which formed almost a molasses type of thing, she slowed light down to 38 miles an hour. This is in Associated Press. When light travels through empty space, it zips along at 186,000 miles a second, the highest speed anything can attain. A moonbeam takes a little over a second to reach Earth. But a Danish physicist and her team of collaborators have found a way to slow light down to about 38 miles an hour. We're getting the speed of light so low, we can almost send a beam into the system, go for a cup of coffee, and return in time to see the light come out. Now, what does it mean? If it can go 38, it obviously can go 3 or 2 or 1 or stop. And, you know, all of a sudden we're finding something that we never even dreamed of. And again, the scientists, who are the ones that are really telling you about God, have given you. How then can light beings function upon the Earth? How can light, this magnetism, then enter? I mean, when you leave the body, I thought, my God, you know, as light, you're going to exit through the pineal gland at 186,000 miles a second. You know, you don't even have time to wave. I mean, in 2 seconds, you're gone beyond the moon. But now we find that, wait a minute here. They have made light go 38 miles an hour? Then could go, what? Could it just stop maybe a couple of feet away? A whole new paradigm now exists. A whole a whole change in anything we've ever thought of. I mean, they've gotten down to a point here where they say where atoms chilled nearly to absolute zero can barely move at all. So, you know, what we're learning is just how really primitive we are. And remember, I've said to you over and over again, you people have been on this earth for 500,000 years. It took you 499,900 years to make a light bulb. You made your light bulb 100 years ago. And at that point on, you got very smart and you started to develop all of these different things, which is wonderful. But remember the other folks who live in our neighborhood called the universe. There are other folks who developed their light bulb 25,000 years ago. So they know how to appear, disappear, manifest, go through walls, and all of these strange, bizarre things that, you know, we say are impossible, in the same way that we always felt light traveled at 186,000, and that was it. Well, now we know as of 2 days ago in Norway, that's not it. It's something else. And the more you study and learn about what you call God, the more you'll find that you didn't know anything. Yes?
I think they use ice as well to slow it down.
Yes, I don't know. I mean, how they did these types of things, God only knows. But the point is, and the important point is, and all it means to me that is even rational about this, is that they have showed us something that we never knew before. And if we were religious people that didn't know this, we'd say, oh, it's a miracle. No, it's not a miracle. It's just something that didn't happen before that has a rational, logical explanation. So we've searched for human identity, and we come to this conclusion that human identity, for the most part, is meaningless, but that you are actually an angle of light that entered a fetus in about the 3rd month. So you're something totally different than what you appear to be. You have a Halloween costume on, but inside of this Halloween costume is a very special identity, which is light, which is an angle of light, a unique angle of light that you are, which will exist forever, which can never be destroyed, can never be killed, will simply transfer itself to another location. Uses a body so it can participate in existence. Needs a brain in order to communicate. So then gets inside of a body in the same way that you need a car in order to travel long distances from one place to the other. And you get into the car and you go. Well, as light you get into a body and you can do all of these different things that you can't do as light. But your personality, your existence, your identity, your family is in light. And that's why it says in the Bible, God is light. And you are a child of the light. See? You're not a child in the form here. You're a child of your mother and father here. But this is just a temporary thing. The light is not. Last week, I shared something with you from Dr. John Gribbins. Dr. John Gribbins wrote a book that I recommend to you. I know Al shared it with me. It's called Schrodinger's Kittens in Search for Reality. It's a book of quantum physics. And what he did was really give us credibility in what I'm talking about. He said the very workings of our brains depend on the exchange of photons. You can't think. You can't do the things you do. Your heart can't beat unless there's an exchange of photons. And what is a photon? A photon, and the word incidentally was originated by Albert Einstein, who let us know what a photon was. But a photon is an angle of light. It enters the Earth on an angle. It doesn't, come down straight. And it depends on the angle at which it enters as how it will impact the brain and cause us to think differently. That's why you invented your light bulb, because as we got to what we call the Aquarian Age, the angle of light changed from here to here, impacting the gates of the brain differently, and gates started to open that had been closed before. And you know what I think? I'll make a light bulb. You'll what? Before that you had horses and candles and all of these things. Suddenly, as we got toward this Aquarian time, the season of the universe changed, the angle changed, and you were able suddenly to understand things. It's a season of the universe. The word photon, if you look up the word photon, a photon is a messenger particle. It is an angle of light that is a messenger. As it says in the Bible, an angel of light is a messenger, because an angel of light in the Bible is an angle of light. Don't think of light as this type of light you're seeing here. The type of light you're seeing here is light in the visible spectrum. that's fine. But when we're talking about light that is in the invisible spectrum, we're talking about beyond gamma, we're talking about ultraviolet, we're talking about infra, we're talking about light that you cannot visualize and is called electromagnetic radiation. It is energy which comes as an angle, as a messenger, okay, and takes up residence in a body so that it can manifest itself and communicate one to the other. You flow as a light being in a wave, you collapse as a particle, enter into a body, and then can operate the body, and when the body can no longer host you, you take off. And basically, that's that. And that's what John Gribbins was saying here. It is an exchange of photons. Now, that's why scientific astrology is so important to understand. I mean, you know, astrology, like everything else, takes a tremendously bad rap because of all the things that are in the newspapers and cartoons and the silly stuff that goes on that, you know, everybody's like, my God, this is stupid, don't get involved with that. And of course, our friends here that wear robes say it's of the devil. You know, I mean, you know, astrology, stay away from astrology. Why? It's of the devil. I mean, you got two things now that are stupid. You got this and you got that. But really, when you begin to understand that we're talking about, do angles of light or electromagnetic waves that change in their direction cause a change in the operation of the human brain? And of course they do. Why? Because it's a change and an exchange of photons, which is magnetism, which affects the brain, and our quantum physicists tell us that. I don't want to hear from priests or ministers or any of these people, and I don't have any time for that. I want to hear from, to me, the minister of light that I want to listen to is a guy like John Gribbins, because he knows what he's talking about. I don't want hocus pocus. I don't want somebody to say, well, it's spirit. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear about photon, because that's what spirit is. The invisible power that lurks unseen in the universe that allows you to live forever, and allows you to move to all parts of the universe and be part of what we call God. This is the real essence of why we're even talking about this thing. An electromagnetism that allows your heartbeat to pump the blood so you can live. The photon that animates every single part of you. And that's why you are described in the Bible as a child of light, because that's your family. That's your mother. So people say, you know, you've been here, how many thousands of times have you come down here or exchanged one body for another as a particle of light? And if people say, you know, like when I die, I want to go up and see my mother. Which mother do you want to see? You've had about 3,000 of them. Which one? Only the one you remember. See? And then, you know, all of those that have gone on, who have lived here in physical bodies, you'll never see them again in their physical body, but as soon as you come back to communicate with them in their natural state as light, you'll recognize exactly who they were, what part they played in this adventure upon the earth, in trying to change the defective nature of the earth. And what is the defective nature of the earth? That it happened so many years ago, according to the Bible, when the angels intercoursed with women. Well, that's silly. You can see an angel flapping its wings and all this stuff. You know, I don't want to hear about stuff. Well, that's silly. What's it talking about? It's talking that entering into the human being, which is the mind, which is woman, which is the feminine part, was an angle of light which was defective. In other words, something had happened in the makeup of the universe. The universe works on clockwork, but occasionally meteors have struck the earth and caused tremendous damage. Occasionally you have all these cataclysmic types of events. There was a cataclysmic event that occurred when angles of electromagnetic radiation impacted the earth for whatever reason at the wrong angle and caused the human brain to collapse in whatever way, and gates shut that should have been opened and gates opened that should have been closed, and we went on and passed this on from generation to generation to generation, waiting until this Aquarian time when the angle would once again change and we could understand how to recollapse that wave and bring it back to a particle so we could correct the fault. That's what's happening. That's why you're sitting here listening to me, because you're here with the one purpose to correct the defect that was caused thousands, millions of years ago in the human entity by this angle. So that is why the movement of planets in the universe has such a profound effect on all life. The significance of the movement of Pluto and Chiron. It's significant. Why? Because the people who were the Greeks, they were not Greeks. In fact, most of them spent just about all of their lives in Alexandria, Egypt. These were different people who were angles of light who came from other places, who came here and presented humankind upon this earth with their whole foundation in astronomy, mathematics, science, medicine, philosophy, physics, you name it. They knew all of this stuff. When the rest of the earth was splitting rocks and selling sheep, these guys all came together, and we're talking about electrons and photons and energy and so forth and so on. They were a far advanced race. But anyhow, they spoke in terms of code. And they spoke in terms of code because it had to wait until you evolved in the 12th or 13th grades or whatever. Point where you do. We on the earth have evolved to a point where we're starting to understand this. And so they told us about Hades, which was the doorway to the next world, and that taking you across the river Styx was a little gray boatman. It was gray, and his name was Charon. And Hades was also known in Rome as Pluto. Well, so what? You know, big deal. That's a nice story, and that's all that people took of it until 1930, when they found the most distant planet from the sun. And of course, knowing about the myth as the doorway to the next world or the frontier of space, they called it Pluto. But there was no little gray thing with it until 1978, when a guy found something orbiting Pluto. They said, "What is it?" He says, "I don't know. It's a small gray satellite." Just like they had said, that little small gray satellite. This guy's now, I thought his wife's name was Sharon. It was Charlene, Charlene. And he wanted to name it after his wife, Charlene. And of course, it was awfully close. And somebody said, Pluto and Charlene. No, not quite. Pluto and Chiron. That's it. Yep, okay. And that's the way it is. And right now, they have moved. And Charon, the little gray boatman, takes you across the river Styx. Well, when they move out of their orbit, they move across the orbit of Neptune. And Neptune is the sea or the water. Well, of course Charon crosses the water, because he crossed Neptune. And now is on its movement upward to the highest point, and it will reach its zenith as the highest point on March 15th, 1999, the Ides of March. But on February the 11th, Charon's boat left the dock, and they moved across the orbit of Neptune. And we'll show you a see-through on that in a minute. But the significance of that move is what happens when electrons jump from one orbit to another. They absorb and emit energy. And of course, like Albert told us, this movement this can't happen unless it affects the whole universe. So there's a whole new energy pattern coming down upon us. Now, one of the things that is important in your understanding, and what was pointed up in the myth, and you can't say, gee, you know, we prove that whoever wrote this astronomically thousands of years ago, when nobody knew anything, they knew everything. They knew this was there. And they said, Pluto was there and the little gray boatman. And then it took us to 1978 to say, yes, Pluto is there, and there's something small and gray orbiting it, and it's Charon, and wow. So you can't just say, well, we believe that part, but I don't believe the rest of it, because there's a great story, you know, attached to it. And one of the things was that when Charon would take you across that river, you would drink from the river Lethe, L-E-T-H-E, and Lethe means oblivion. It takes you across the river. The first thing that you would find yourself is tempted to drink, and when you drink of Lethe, you forget. Because I want to prove to you, every one of you have been there. Every one of you have experienced there. Every one of you have been to Elysium and met people there. How many of you remember it? Look at you staring at me. You don't remember this? Come on. You don't? Why? Because you drank. You drank from the river, and you don't remember. Always born, coming in again and again and again, carrying with you baggage, bringing new deposits, all of these things, but never remembering, because each time you had to drink from the river of Lethe. No way to understand the return pathway to the family of life. That's why you come and you listen to me. And you're trying to figure out, because you know doggone well there's more to life than, you spend all of your life going to church and they're telling you about talking snakes and fish that swallow people. Then the fish throws up and an evangelist pops out. And they tell you, watch out, you're coming here, it's a cult. What in the world is that? We have talking snakes and fish puking up ministers. That's all right, I believe that. Glory to God. Jeez. Don't go down there, it's a cult. But the point that you've got to realize is that this light or photon which you are needs a brain to activate consciousness and the ability to change direction, to do new things, to follow, to carry instructions so that you can change the whole course of life, the whole course of existence, where in this particular case, the Great White Lodge, if you would, Command Center, sent people here with specific instructions to change the thing, to correct this defective angle which had occurred so many thousands of years ago. And here you are. And the thing is, do you want to be part of it? What do you do? See? You have to, you can't do this while you're flowing like a wave. You have to get into a body so that you can tap into the brain and make these things happen. Well, you're in one now. So what are you going to do? We're going to sit here and stare at one another. The tree cannot make leaves unless it has a ground to attach itself to. The light can't manifest itself unless it has a bulb. And you can't do anything as this invisible light unless you have a body. Well, you've got one. It was given to you. And you've got something in here that has the key to all of this: understanding, enlightenment, instructions, exactly what to do. And what have you done all of your life? You've gone into cults, and they've said, don't do that. You'll open your mind to devils. That's what they do. And we bought this. No, just follow me. Come in here. We have stained glass on the window so you can't see what's really going on out there. Just come in here and we'll sing, and I'll tell you and then when you die, you'll get your reward. And then they came and they took an offering, and we paid them for that. Your payoff is going to come after you're dead. Oh, I like that. That's like going to buying a Cadillac for $5 a month, where you come and pick it up after you're dead. It's only $5 a month. You can't beat that. As soon as you die, you'll get it. Oh, okay, I like that. Sign me up. And that's what we did. We all signed up. And we never got the Cadillac. And who have you ever had come back from any of your family saying they were right? Because you know what? All of a sudden, you started to inherit some common sense, logic, understanding, and you say, wait a minute here. I think somebody's putting me on. And you were right. You were right. The instructions to you are as follows: that you shall find to the left of the house of Hades a spring. And next to that spring, you'll find a white cypress. So to the left of Hades, this is the doorway to the next world. And on the left side is a spring. And there's a white cypress there. All right? And what it says then, and I'm taking I'm quoting to you from what they call the Eleusinian Mysteries, which were the Greek people who really got, who took this one step beyond of saying this is talking about a springtime and seasons. This is talking about the human mind and its connection to the universe. Okay? To this spring, it says, approach not near. In other words, the water that comes out of this is left. And what you have been doing all of your life has been drinking from the water from the left side. You have been drinking from left. You say, well, what about the white cypress? I mean, it's so beautiful. And that's why I went there. A white cypress. White is the color of spirit. Cypress of the mother. But it's false. It's not true. Do you remember when Jesus came to the tree, to the fig tree, and he said, he cursed the fig tree? He said, because all there was leaves on it. It wasn't true. Because a fig blossoms on the inside. And that which cannot produce that which blossoms on the inside is adorned on the outside. So you got all of these religious things, and you spend all of your life, and you wear crosses around your neck, and you went in and you stood up, and every Christmas Eve you went and stood outside and sang songs and all of these things, and it entertained you, and it still entertains you. But it never ever raised you to a point of consciously being able to be part of what you call God, consciously restoring you back to this family of life. You never, and so you spent your life inside of yourself, totally confused. You spent your life inside of yourself, struggling with yourself, fighting with yourself, wrestling with yourself. And that's the story of Jacob wrestling with the man, remember? Until his thigh was put out. And that means you're struggling with yourself. The thigh, because of the location on the body, metaphysically is a symbol of desire. Until the desire for you to control everything is subdued and stopped, the left side shuts down. Once that happens, then you become Israel. And Israel is not a country. Israel is Isis, I-S, which is spirit, Ra, which is the mind, E-L is God. Spirit and mind then come together and produce God inside of you. When you drop desire and you're able then to stop struggling with yourself, enter into meditation, because then Jacob says in Genesis 32:30, I have seen God face to face, and I shall call this place Peniel. Peniel. Genesis 32:30. So we're not talking about literal left and right sides. I get people on the internet saying, well, you're making a mistake here because you're saying the right side. But remember, the right side controls the left side. That's nothing to do with this. It's not talking about left and right side. They're just used as symbols. It's talking about a part in you that you've never used, you've never touched. That actually it is the spring where you'll have your memory restored to who your family really is, where you really came from, where you're going, what part you play in this great thing. Most people are down in this country and this planet like ants, and they're on this earth and they run around and they die. Somebody steps on them, they die, and that's the end of it. And they've never ever even thought about, what are you doing here? What's your purpose? What's supposed to happen? Consciousness created for you the most magnificent planet to live on, and what have they done to it? What have they done to it? Polluted it, dropped bombs on it, tortured people on it, children starving all over the place in all of these remote, terrible places. We've completely screwed it up, but it's time now to change it, because we're not operating the earth in the way the earth was intended to be operated. So we're not talking about literal references. You approach the white cypress because it gives you a thought that this is a true mother. But remember that Jesus cursed the fig tree. It's not a true mother. Whatever it is that you think that you could approach, stay away from it, because that which is the truth only requires you to close your eyes, hold your breath, and sink into that which is nothingness. There you'll find the light. Sink into the darkness. There you'll find the light. None of your thoughts, no thinking of anything, no seeing anything, simply diving deep down into the nothingness where God exists. And what do you find there? There's another lake to the right side. And it's called, I can never spell this word. Well, I call it Monosmene. Who knows? Anyhow, whatever it is. But you know who that is? She's the goddess of memory. And you drink from that spring, the goddess of memory. We say, well, where can I find that spring? Inside here. You got a little container on top of your shoulders. It's here. It's in there. Closer than, that's where it is. Well, how do I get there? Okay, you have to understand that Monosmene is the mother of the muses, the goddess of memory. The place in your brain that is responsible for memory is called hippocampus. Okay? And hippocampus, the word hippocampus means seahorse. All right? And the color of that little organ called hippocampus in your brain by Stedman's Medical Dictionary is white. So it is a white seahorse. In the Bible, it says at the time of the Passover, the time of this change, the time of this new thing happening, it says, behold, heaven opened, and I saw a white horse. The only white horse you can see when heaven opens is the constellation Pegasus. Pegasus is a white horse. The father of Pegasus is Poseidon, the god of the sea. Pegasus is a white seahorse. Pegasus is a white seahorse in the sky. The hippocampus is a white seahorse in your brain. Pegasus flying over Mount Helicon, his hit the top of Mount Helicon, and he hit the spring and set forth the fountain of Hippocrene, which was sacred to Menominee. In other words, Pegasus created the fountain. Pegasus created this place, which was the fountain of memory. And then they said, oh, here it comes. When you look and you see the white horse, and in December 1995, the first time they ever found a planet orbiting a sun star that was a twin of ours, two guys in Switzerland found it, and Pegasus, the sign, had been given. And now the angles of light come streaming down from the white horse Pegasus to reunite with the Pegasus, the white horse, which is inside of you, the hippocampus, and in your meditation, suddenly you touch and you remember. You're reunited to your family by the white horse who carries the lightning bolts of Zeus. And what do the lightning bolts mean? You become enlightened. Ah, I understand. The lights went on. Ah, begin to know. Now I know. Now I know what my purpose is here. I know what my purpose is. Now I know why I'm here. Now I know where I'm going. Now I know what life is about. Now in the midst of all the crying and the hurt and the sickness and the dying and the sadness, I know what my job is. And I can change, I can correct the course of this. And so now you understand about Pegasus. You see the single eye of supernova looking down, staring at you from the front page of National Geographic. I don't have to go to church. I look at National Geographic and see the eye, the single eye, the pineal gland of God staring down at us, ready to go on fire between now and 2002 to cause a cosmic Kundalini. And then I have Pluto and Chiron, ready to move across the river of Neptune, and it send back up to the point of the doorway to the next world. And it said in February the 11th, last week when I gave you this, Chiron's boat has left the dock. They've moved. All of this happening. You don't have to make, I don't need no New Age stuff. Are you kidding me? There's nothing, I mean, this is real. Why make up stuff? We get on the internet and they get all kinds of things. Oh, there's people are going to spin through Sidonia and all these things are going to happen and little gray men are going to come down and run around and all these things. I don't need people making up stupid stuff like that because there's so much that is real, that is exciting, that connects you to the universe, to the cosmos. And so when you reach that spring of memory, you rise to the higher places in meditation. And now with Pluto and Chiron making their move to the position as the gateway to the next world, it's extremely important that you no longer drink from the place of the white cypress. It is extremely important that you no longer take that which you say is your spiritual drink from the left side, that you submit yourself to the fountain of Menominee, which is the hippocampus through your meditation. And I've told you over and over again, all it requires you to do is close your eyes, tell yourself you're watching yourself so you collapse the wave, hold your breath for 10 seconds and leave. I'm not putting down meditation where you go for 45, because we do it here every Tuesday and Thursday night. I'm not putting down meditation for whatever. Meditation is wonderful for your body, for your health, for all of these different things. And you can take part in it, but I'm talking about reconnecting yourself to your mother, to your father, to your family, to the universe. It takes 10 seconds. Like a twinkling of an eye, like lightning from the east to the west. I hold my breath and I shut off the thoughts of my mind. You can try it anytime you want. You can try it sitting here right now, because half of you sitting here have been thinking about other things other than what I'm talking about anyhow. So you can try it right now simply by closing holding your breath, and you'll shut your mind off just like that. And then your body will get ready. Something's dying here. We got to get ready to leave. But you do it while you're in good health now. That's why in the Bible, Paul says, I die daily. The winged white horse Pegasus will cause lightning or enlightenment to those who do. You have your memory restored. You return to your family of light. Now is the time of Pluto and Chiron. Now is the time of the spring of Menominee. Now is the time to begin to understand as adults that a civilization of a very advanced race came to this planet and provided you the basis of your scientific culture. I'm telling you something. Each one of these people, whether it be Pythagoras, whether it be Democritus, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, whether it be Hippocrates, all of these people, Diogenes, Zeno. Zeno was talking about quantum physics 3,000 years ago. And I want to know something about that. I want to know who told him about it. I want to know who told Democritus how electrons change orbit. Who told him? All the words was sheep. Who told this guy that? And I'll tell you something about them. They were pagans. What does that mean? It means that they were not connected with any organized religious beliefs. They went to the truth, and they gave you God. Those pagans gave you everything that you have, whether you want to call it your sciences, your medicine, your astronomy. They gave you everything. Your religious people that we've clung to all of our life gave you absolutely nothing but fear and guilt and grief. So you can ignore this. I mean, you know, that's a good part of coming here. That's why I've told the young ladies that we're talking to a little while ago, this isn't a cult, so you go, you go. It's like the A&P. It's open, it's closed, it's closed. You can ignore this. You disagree with me. How can you not disagree with me? It's just crazy stuff I'm telling you. Who tells you this kind of stuff? But I would say to you, since it doesn't cost you anything, and you don't have to join anything, and it takes 10 seconds, that if you begin practicing it, you can prove it, and then you can flow in harmony with your true family, or you can choose to ignore it and then fly into the confusion, which is Pluto and Uranus and Aquarius. Flowing in harmony with this photon means that you follow a different path than you have ever followed before. And I have over and over suggested to you that the only possible way you can reunite with the light that is your true self is through meditation. And I'm telling you, it is a totally different meditation than you have ever experienced. It is a meditation that no one can instruct you on. Because if someone instructs you on it, then they're going to say what works for them. And it may take you 50 million miles away from what works for you. You have to allow meditation to find you. When you put food in your mouth, you don't say, now, excuse me down there, let me show you how to do this. Coming down is cookies, you know how to digest cookies. It's different. You don't do any of that. You just allow it to enter into you and you get out of the way. It knows what to do. In the same way, you get out of the way, it knows what to do. I'm not talking about a meditation of people who meet at high schools and all that stuff, and that's very good, and I'm not knocking any of that. It has a very, very, very good purpose as for your physical life. But I'm talking to you about a meditation that will allow you to move to the place of separation from the physical to reunite with your origin while you are alive here. I mean, how do you do this? What do you do? What is meditation? What are you doing when you meditate? What's the reason that you cross your legs or chant Om or sit in the dark or listen to strange sounds, bang, and all this stuff? You don't do that any other time during your life. When you go to work, do you hear strange sounds? Well, maybe sometimes, but I mean for the most part, bang and all. You don't do that. This is weird stuff that you do in the dark. But when you're into meditation, you get into the dark, you do things that you don't do any other time. It's because unknown to most people, meditation is actually a way to die to the self. Meditation is a preparation for death, but not physical death. It's a way to try to run away from the true person that you are physically and instead find something totally different that you may or can possibly become. It's different than religion because religion focuses on a physical death. But we listened to the other day. Well, what was it? The guy died, and the minister said, oh, I think a policeman died. Wasn't it a policeman or something like that? And I went to the funeral, and the minister, whoever it was, said he didn't know what to say. He couldn't explain why this happened. And so our religious people make up things. You know what he said? God needed security in heaven. He needed another policeman. I was on the radio. It was on the radio. When I was a little kid, I remember seeing the first dead person I think I ever saw. My father was in the casket, and a religious person came and said, my father was one of the big interior decorators for Macy's and Bamberger's. He designed the first floats on the Thanksgiving Day parade. And the clergyman said God needed an interior decorator. You know what I said as a little kid? I don't want to be that. I'm never going to be an interior decorator. I want to be something that God doesn't want because I want to stay. I think I found it. But you see, so religion focuses on a physical death. The whole thing is that so you drop dead, they put you in a box, shove newspaper in your mouth, throw you in the ground, everybody goes back to your house to eat ziti, and then they're sure you've gone on to heaven somewhere. Come on. But this focuses on a different kind of death. It's like in 1 Corinthians 15:31, Paul says, I die daily. How can you die daily? You abandon yourself in meditation. You don't have to come here. You don't have to go anywhere. You're in your house. You hold your breath. I'm watching myself. You hold your breath for 10 seconds. Go on about your business. Every time you do it, that light starts to move a little closer to the center. This is mental. This is electrical activity which transcends the body. Dying to them is the goal. And the result's the only way you can make contact with your true origin, which is light. So you move into a whole new dimension of awakening. Awakening to a new existence that you've always yearned for, but you never really thought you can find. In the midst of all the chaos that you're part of. In the midst of all the guilt that you're part of because you did all of these wrong things. And as I keep telling you, because I detest so much of the rules and regulations, the things you did were not wrong. They simply didn't agree with the cult that told you this is the way you have to do things. But doesn't make them wrong. I mean, the things you did, it makes questionable those people. But it's a mental and electrical activity. You've been told so much stuff in church which has no validity, and we're afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of our minds. We're afraid to enter in because there's devils in there. What nonsense. I mean, come on, it's 1999. I could buy that, the human sacrifices and devils and demons. I mean, when people didn't know, but you know. And you know that the only thing that exists that is invisible power is in the subatomic realm. And it depends. You can either make a devil out of it or you can make an angel out of it. Depends how it's used. And so what is this great death? Because if I practice this, I'm starting to get my body ready so that I can meet those of the family of light and the messages can come to me through the pineal gland. The Zen masters said it many, many years ago. And for those of you who haven't heard it before, if you want to write it down, it's a good one. It says, if you die before you die, then when you die, you'll never die. Stopping the breath is a practice that stimulates the brain to begin to take the same inward action that it would take in the event the breath stopped forever, as in death. The brain goes into action immediately, makes sure that all electrical impulse go into collapse, and this allows the light, which is now collapsed to a particle, to leave or to receive. In this meditation, deep in the dark recesses, the stopping of the breath starts to stimulate the brain to actively participate in the process. And that's what's important. But you do this when you're alive, and you do it when you're full of life. You're starting to make contact back to the mother light, to the father light. And this will allow you to recognize and participate while you're in good health. Otherwise, you'll never get to that edge of that cliff. You'll never get to that place to look at the promised land. You'll never get to experience it. You'll never communicate with those who are there. It brings you right to the point where you can begin to see and to communicate, and it doesn't require you to physically die. It doesn't require you to have to be accompanied by someone else because you're totally aware of what's going on, which happens to most people who cross over. They haven't a clue what this is about, and then somebody like a Samael has to come and take them by the hand and talk to them. There's no life-threatening fears to be absorbed in this meditation, and what the ancients called it was dissolving the winds. One is imitating death, and by doing this, you dissolve the same winds that are dissolved in death. The brain begins to adjust, and it will bring you to the mountaintop. It will bring you to the promised land, and you begin to communicate with other intelligence of light. And that's the fun part of all this. That's the fun part of all this. That's why you watch all these programs on television. That's why Star Trek was the leading program, because people really, this is fun. I want to know about it. I'm sick of this, this earth. I want to find out what's going on. Well, you can, but you have to watch television. You can start being part of it. So if you can gain control over the four winds, you can gain control over the mind, and you can transcend the mind for your reunion into light. Is everybody going to know this? Many people will become aware during the upcoming time of great enlightenment, which is now beginning with Pegasus and Pluto and Chiron and the single eye of supernova. And that's what life is. Religion taught me and religion taught you that everybody can go to heaven and everybody can fly up to paradise and everybody can get saved, but you know through your own experience that in order to do different things, you have to know what you're doing. You have to have a basic understanding. I mean, I'm not talking here. You say, well, now he's saying everybody has to know. I mean, all I'm saying here, I think even the most, you can take your child and say to your child, just tell yourself you're watching yourself, close your eyes and hold your breath for 5 seconds. That's not overwhelming. It used to be 10 seconds. Remember I used to say I require 10 seconds, but I found this was too much of a burden for the average person. 10 seconds. So I cut it to 5. I can really cut it to 3 because it's in a twink. Blink your eye. That's how fast it is. You know, we have to stop thinking in the limited way that we think. We have to start. Leave our thinking and let it open like a lotus and encompass the whole of the universe. We're primitive people. It's great to go to the moon, but not everybody can go unless you know what you're doing. So you transcend the mind, and nobody else knows how to do it until somebody shows them how to do it. You can tell people to tell themselves they're watching themselves, close their eyes and hold their breath for 5 seconds. That doesn't take a whole great deal of learning. You can tell everybody how to do that. And they'll say to you, are you crazy? My pastor wouldn't allow me to do that. And she's right, or he's right. They wouldn't, because they don't know. They don't understand. And they keep pumping the same stories out week after week after week after year, and the bombs keep falling, and the children keep starving, and the animals are brutalized, and the women are put down as they had been, and all of the people who may be different are hated by these same ones who say, we saw George Carlin the other night. Did you see George Carlin? Oh, God. Oh, my God. He said, and God, if you do wrong, is going to put you in a pit, and you're going to go on fire. And as you run around screaming, he's got people chasing you, demons, and sticking you with knives and forks. Forever. But God loves you. It was great. He had some, he has a way of saying things that I can't obviously say here. But he did say if God is the CEO of the earth, any other CEO who had an operation like this would go on would be out of his royal you-know-what, and so forth. So those of you who hear this will do nothing to make it a part of you, and that's fine, because as I said, this is not a cult, so you do whatever you want to do. It has nothing to do with me, and it's none of my business. It's totally up to you. It's a decision that you make in your life. I know I'm late and I don't want to keep you. I just want to give me a few more minutes. I just want to talk to you a little bit. I didn't get as far as I wanted to get today because I wanted to tell you a little bit about Pluto and Chiron, which is going on and what is happening, because some significant things have happened. I've struggled week after week telling you about Pluto and Chiron and proving to you that the discoveries of Pluto and Chiron were foretold by an extraterrestrial being. I mean, the only people that could have known that Pluto and Chiron were out there 3,000 years ago were people from someplace else, and they were. And last week I gave you the stuff 107, which you have, and it was from the Associated Press, and it told you that Chiron's boat had left the dock and began to move across the Styx and past Neptune to fulfill itself with Pluto as the gate to the next world, or as the guy on the radio said yesterday, the frontier of the universe. Great. So all of a sudden something, since we started talking about it here, and you know if you've been coming here, nobody was talking about it before, but when we started talking about it, there was interest in Pluto and Chiron. When was the last time you heard any discussions about Pluto? Suddenly the newspapers and the television are talking about it. It's become such an important part of the ancient myth, which relates directly to consciousness. I want to ask you a favor, and I know I got started late, and I know you might have someplace to go. I would like to spend a few minutes with what I gave you, if that's agreeable to you. 2 people said yes, so I guess the rest. No, it's not a discussion group. I just want you to pick up that. But I'm providing you with material that I gave you today, and it's called Stuff 108, and it's from the National Aeronautic and Space Agency Science News, dated February the 18th, 1999. See down in the lower right-hand corner, February the 18th, 1999. Okay, so you can see the heading is Much Ado About Pluto. I mean, is it another coincidence that the main focus here at the same time it becomes important to the scientific community and the media, say, like melatonin and so forth. Below the headline, as you can see, it reads, recent discoveries of Pluto-like objects in the outer solar system have sparked debate about the nature of the tiniest planet. And the first paragraph reads, of the solar system becoming a bit mixed up in 1979 when Pluto moved closer to the Sun than Neptune. And then the topsy-turvy situation was rectified last Thursday, February 11th, 1999, when Pluto crossed Neptune's orbit and became the 9th planet again. As you know, the Bible speaks of the number 9 as consciousness. Now, considering the closeness of Pluto and Chiron at the myth, look at the third paragraph, beginning with, but is Pluto really a planet? The last sentence says, some astronomers consider the pair to be a double planet. And that's what the ancient mythologists locked them together. Pluto and Chiron were really one. And what's so interesting in the fourth paragraph, Pluto is the only planetary orbit which crosses that of another planet, Neptune, and is tilted 17 degrees with respect to the plane of the solar system. What I found interesting there is that Pluto and Chiron cross the orbit of Neptune. Nobody else crosses another orbit but Chiron, the boatman who ferries you across the river to the next world. See? And notice in paragraph 5, all the other rocky planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are located in the inner solar system except for Pluto. And all the other planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are gaseous, not Pluto, out there. So you see that Pluto is where it is for a purpose. It is totally different in all aspects. Now, if you turn over the page to number 108, on the back, it says in 92, David Jewett and J. Lou discovered a curious object called QB1. The first hint that there might be more than just Pluto in the distant reaches. Wow, we want to take a real close look at that in the myths about who is with Pluto. See? And then they show, in the next part, they show the Kuiper belt where they believe other things exist with Pluto. Each is a 900-second integration. And the images are separated by 18 minutes. There we have 9 and 18. And all of the measurements in the Old Testament are measured in cubits, which is 18. In paragraph 3, nearly 100 objects like QB1 have been found. They are thought to be similar to Pluto and like Pluto. And this swarm of Pluto-like objects beyond Neptune is known as the Kuiper belt. A swarm of Pluto-like objects beyond Neptune. This would mean many aspects of Pluto or accomplices of Pluto across the river Styx. And we will see the Furies. Could it be the Furies? They were with. When Pluto takes you across the river Styx, you hear all of the confusion and the wailing coming from the Furies. Could they be the Furies? Paragraph 6, Pluto has enough mass and gravity to retain a tenuous atmosphere from which bright surface froth may be deposited. It is a cold, dark place, as is Hades. And now on page 109, what are the mysterious dark patches? Paragraph 1, revealed in Hubble images of Pluto. Could they be due to photochemicals or perhaps areas of primordial organic matter? Life of some sort? And does Charon, like Pluto, have dark spots or an atmosphere? So what have we found? Pluto and Chiron cross Neptune, which is the water. Charon's boat crosses the Styx. Pluto is cold and dark, as is Hades. Pluto is the only planet located in the outer solar system that is rocky. It's different. Pluto is accompanied maybe by hundreds or thousands of other objects. We look into that. It stands out. It's bright. It may have an atmosphere. And NASA plans a visit in 2010. Do you know what the name of the visit is going to be? The Pluto Express. I've placed in a folder on the back shelf more information from NASA about Pluto. I didn't want to rush through any more of this, and I have to be considerate of you, and you have to leave. We'll continue with this. There's some really fascinating things. And remember, when you're looking at this, this plays an integral part in your life and in your mind and in the lives of your family and in the lives of everybody on the earth and everybody in the universe. Okay? And as you found out about light and so forth, we're finding out things that we knew before. And remember what Pluto did, and I'll leave you with this. This is what Pluto did in the myth. As Persephone was picking flowers in the spring and everything was beautiful, and the birds were chirping, and the gentle breezes were blowing, and everything was lovely. There was no problems, and everybody was having a good time, and the economy was good, and there was low unemployment, and the inflation rate was down, and everything couldn't have been better. Oh, and the stock market was going through the roof. It couldn't have been better. And all of a sudden, there was a tremendous crash, a tremendous crack, and 4 black horses appeared coming out of the earth, and Pluto was standing in the chariot, and he took Persephone, who represents all of that which is good, and he snatched her, and he dragged her down to the underworld. But I again encourage you to remember the Bible also says, if you do your part and get yourself back in line, 1,000 may fall on your right and 1,000 may fall on your left, but no harm will come to you in your house. Not because there's any God that wants to hurt anybody. It's the season of the soul. If a hurricane or a tornado comes, you get into the shelter. Well, your shelter is that little meditation I told you about to correct that change and defect in the angle and get yourself in harmony with your family. As I said last week, ladies and gentlemen, Pluto has left the building. Thank you very much for being